Hello, Adrian Plass here, and this is a bit of a benchmark for us, I think. This is our 20th recording, isn't it,
It
Bridget?
really, really is, yeah.
I think it's remarkable. I think in the course of those 20 recordings,
Mm.
we've argued beforehand twice. That's not bad, is it?
No, I think people knowing us quite well would think that was pretty
Pretty
good
good
going,
score, yeah.
really. But the other
2%.
thing, of course, about today is that it's Monday again, another strange Monday where we're hearing terrible news continually and we're not doing the things we would normally be doing on a Monday. It's a very strange thing.
Yeah, we got a parcel, didn't we, yesterday,
We
with a
did,
book in it,
yes.
and we were thinking, what shall I wash the parcel first, and
Yes.
should I undid the parcel, and I thought I'd wash my hands afterwards. Undid the parcel, took the book out. I thought, should I wash the book?
I
How do you
know.
wash a book? Eventually we sort of worked it all out, but
Yeah.
it's a strange time,
It
isn't it?
really, really is. It really is. Well, it's always lovely hearing from people who are in the boat with us, and those of you who were with us yesterday will remember that Adrian read, having been to virtual church with our church, he then read some virtual church notices, and since then we've had one or two sent to us, and this is just one of them. All the preachers for next month are pinned on the notice board, which conjures up the most wonderful, wonderful image.
I think there's something to be said for that.
But
Well, we'll see.
actually, we were talking about the fact that your favourite notice is not a virtual one, a fictional one at all, is it?
It's not. It was, and sadly, I can't remember. Well, actually, probably just as well. I can't remember where the church was. It was a big Anglican church, and it was Pentecost Sunday.
Okay.
And the vicar began by saying, and he was a grizzled old fellow, but not didn't easily smile, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "There is only one notice this morning. The charismatic prayer group, the existence of which has been known to me for 8 minutes, will not be meeting on Tuesday." So obviously there'd been a fairly brisk discussion just before
I think
the service
so, and I
began.
think probably some slightly longer discussions afterwards.
I'm sure there were, yes, but I found it quite amusing, I have to say.
Well, you do find things funny,
I
and
do,
you
yeah.
loved writing a book you wrote. Actually, I'm not sure how long ago, a long time ago now, called "Year at St Yorick's," in which you put loads of church notices.
Yeah, this was a book of 12 church magazines, all written by me, I have to add. This is one of the notices I put for one of the months. Ladies' Circle. The Ladies' Circle meeting will be held once again at Mrs. Tyson's house, 36 Butterwick Avenue, on Thursday. This month, the Reverend Richard Hartcourt Smedley will be our special guest, speaking on the subject, the joy of entering heaven. The vicar has indicated that he is unlikely to be accompanied by his wife on this occasion.
I'm quite glad that one isn't real. That's a matter of interest.
Yes.
Well, yesterday, not only did we go to our Zoom church, but we also, and I hope some of you did because it was a lovely experience, listened to the early morning service on Radio 4. It was a particularly sensitive service. It wasn't triumphalistic. It was strong, though, wasn't it? And truly encouraging.
Yeah.
And one of the
very
things that hit both Adrian and I think we had thought about it before, but it's good when things spring back into your minds, was that when Jesus appeared to the disciples through the locked doors, he showed them the scars in his hands and his side and his feet. And the point was making that resurrected, yes, but he still had scars. And it reminded me of something that, again, I don't know how many of you will remember or even know about, because it was some years ago, actually. There was an incredibly beautiful, large Ming vase, and it was waiting to be moved from one place to another, and it was at the bottom of a steep set of stairs. And there was a young man at the top of these stairs who I seem to remember hadn't tied up one of his shoelaces. I'm not quite sure if that's true, but I do know that he tripped, fell down the flight of stairs, banged into the vase, knocked the vase over, and it smashed into, I don't know, trillions of pieces. And the interview on the radio was with a restorer of fine china, and she had painstakingly put together this extraordinarily beautiful vase. But the interviewer was puzzled. He said, "The only thing I don't understand, you've put it together beautifully, it's re-varnished, it looks stunning, but it is covered with the marks of the cracks. Why didn't you, with all your skill, get rid of the cracks and make it look like new?" And she said, because the cracks are part of its story.
And that's, I think, is very interesting. And for me, I mentioned that 30 odd years ago I had a stress illness or breakdown, however you want to put it. And I'm sure some of the people listening have been through that experience. And I would be prepared to say that the vast majority of them would agree with me that after an awful experience like that, you live with a limp. And at first that feels like a disadvantage, but I must say, in relating to people and in all sorts of other ways, I wouldn't be without that limp now. Maybe if I was offered it, I would. I don't know, but I found something very the vulnerability of that, I think, can make it easier for people to approach me sometimes.
Yeah, and I mean, you were talking the other day about nothing is wasted, and in a way that's part of that, isn't it?
That's right, and it's something we trot out as Christians fairly easily, that God uses all the but actually I think it is quite true that, certainly in our experience, that when things go wrong, something good can come out of that if you allow it to be used. But you do have to allow it to be used.
Yes, that's true, isn't it? I was thinking about how things do get smashed, how things do get scarred. And, you know, there are those wonderful words, which many of us, it's our favourite psalm, about how we were put together in our mother's womb. Now, obviously, there are always going to be questions about that we're not dealing with, certainly not today, about abilities and disabilities and various other things. But it is also true that our personalities are put into us before we're born. Our imaginations, all sorts of other bits are put in, as well as our physical being. And one of the things, you know, sometimes at the end of a meeting where people have laughed, perhaps more than they thought they were going to or should, one or two people have sidled up to me and said, is it all right to laugh? I mean, where do we find humour in the Bible? Well, there isn't maybe a huge amount of humour in the Bible, but I'll tell you one thing I do know. We've had 4 children, and in every one of them, as in every baby ever born who has the ability to talk, there will be a chuckle. It's one of the most beautiful things, is a baby's laughter, a baby's smile. So clearly humour was put in, but sometimes even that can get scarred by life and maybe even be used as a weapon.
Well, that's absolutely true. And incidentally, I should mention that Jewish scholars will tell you that many of the parables of things Jesus said would have been greeted with laughter by those who listened to them. So probably we are unaware of some of the humour in the Bible. But what you've just said about it getting twisted is absolutely true. And you know that when you first met me, I think my humour was more of a weapon than it is now.
It was a puzzle to me, wasn't it? Because you were such a kind person, but when somebody attacked you, it was like a rapier. It was sarcasm. It was witty, but it could hurt and it could put somebody down. That is true. Yes.
Well, that was because I as a child growing up, and a boy particularly, I needed a defence, and I think that was what I what I developed was Certainly sarcasm. Yeah, I mean, maybe the lowest form of wit, but it's also the most effective sometimes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and I think what is interesting is that 30 years ago, that humour was I don't know how to put it. It was transfigured. It was changed into something positive. Thank God, and I've been using it ever since then for different purposes.
And that applies to lots of things, doesn't it? Some people are very, very physically strong. They can use that strength. If they give it to God, it can be used in a different way.
Well, I wish people would give God their faults. I mean, people are always stuffing them back in.
Yeah.
It's a waste of energy. I mean, we need aggressive people, but that aggression needs to be used by the Holy Spirit, not let out at the times when someone thinks, I'm going to have a jolly good go at this person.
Well, that applies to St. Paul, let alone anybody else, doesn't it?
I suppose he let a lot out, actually, but yes, it does. I mean, my ridiculous fantasy is that God, I always get them mixed up, God and Paul. God goes into the angel canteen and he says, okay, fellas, or ladies, I don't know what's the gender situation.
Let's move on
with
from
angels.
that.
Right.
I think that's another whole discussion.
Okay, angels. I've found someone to preach to the Gentiles. And the angels say, oh, fantastic. Oh, that's really good. What's he like? And God says, well, he's a real scholar. He has a profound depth of learning. And he's got the knowledge and the awareness to really make a difference on my behalf. And the angels say, that's wonderful. What else about him? And he says, well, he's the sort of man, he sees what he needs and what's needed, and he goes for it. Like someone with a bow and arrow, he just goes straight for it. Wonderful, say the angels. This is great news. And what's he doing at the moment? Says God, bit of a problem there. He's persecuting Christians at the moment and that sort of thing. But it's only a matter of time before we sort that out. And it was only a matter of time. And those qualities or negatives that Paul had in him, they were who he was. And restructured, they were what he used to preach and teach and to remain alive.
So, I mean, I suppose what we're really saying is that instead of trying to stuff down the things that we think don't really fit to the perfect Christian, instead of thinking, I shouldn't have that bit of me, I've got a lot of anger in me, a natural, you mentioned aggression, or I jump in too quickly, or I'm too impetuous, or whatever it is. And very often those things have got us into trouble, or have hurt people, or have done things like you were saying about your earlier sense of humour. That the key is what you do with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some people would be very surprised to find what they were capable of. Once they allowed that process
if they give it to God.
happen. Yeah. And that's a real act of the will.
Yeah.
And then an act of restraint and a discovery of what's possible if you give the reins away.
Yeah. But you have to keep doing it, don't you? I mean, you don't just say to God one night, God, I'd like to give you all my faults, and then wait to be perfect the next day.
No, because then if it's your bad temper, you might then wake up and say, God, you haven't given away my bad temper.
Exactly.
But it is a principle that is just worth taking a look at.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, I mean, it's a very modern idea, isn't it? Whether it's upcycling or recycling, this is what we're supposed to be doing with just about everything. So
that's right.
Maybe we want to say to God today, can you upcycle or recycle or transfigure something or other that I haven't liked in myself for a very long time, but I'd like it to be useful to you?
What do you think I should recycle in myself now that we've been living nose to nose after 50 years?
I think that's a discussion for us to have once this is over.
I think one of your problems is a refusal to actually tackle the issues in your marriage.
Right, okay. Well, anyway.
It would be great if anyone's got any more examples of real church notices, things they've actually seen or heard. We would absolutely love to hear them. You may have noticed that we do enjoy a laugh, and in these times it's very good for us. So feed us with one or two of them.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. What do you think?